Zezzy Stuff. I'm Emma here with Molly, and today we're joined by a special guest, Gray Robertson, who's a sportcaster for the Crimson Tide Network and the SEC Plus Network, and he has a softball podcast called Out of the Box. Gray, tell us a little bit about yourself and your love of softball.
Well, hello, gang. Good to be back with you. Yeah, I when I was a freshman in college, I was given the chance to do radio as the analyst on the Crimson Tide Sports Network for softball, and we have been off and running ever since. This is my ninth year doing it with Tom Canterbury. It's his 11th. I think 2018, somebody came up to us and said, y'all should host a pod. And we said, that's insane. And then we started out of the box. And through out of the box, I've gotten to meet so many friends across the sport, analysts, coaches. We've gotten to talk to every coach in the SEC the last 5, 6 years. And, now I work with Softball America. So potting every week with them and helping out, putting together bracket packets and all various other things that we do during the season, and it's a sport that I have fallen madly in love with. And to paraphrase the great Meg Aronowitz from ESPN, you either love softball or you don't know it yet. And I'm not quite sure the exact quote, but I'm sure Meg will correct me when I see her. But it really is a sport that you just fall in love with the second you give it a chance, and we've seen that the last few years with the growth of all the media surrounding it and attendance and TV ratings. It's just been a blast.
So you obviously went to Bama. You are a Bama fan. We are coming up, we're at the end of April here. We have about 6 more weeks of college softball, including playoffs. How do you feel like Bama has done this year? Just as a Bama fan slash sports analyst here, how are you feeling that they've done this entire season?
It's been a year where Coach Murphy has a phrase that's really, I think, accurate for the season. He says, some teams need a longer runway to take off. And
Mhm.
last season, we saw that team waited until like the end of the runway, and then there's the cliff, and they took off and made it to the World Series, beat Tennessee. This year, it wasn't quite that late, but we're starting to see the corner be turned a little bit. There were just, with so many new people in the starting lineup, with very few seniors who early on were kind of everyday starters, you just were seeing a team that was struggling to figure out how to win. And that's an intangible thing that you really can't practice. You can come up with all the games that you want, but you can't simulate that game feeling. So Alabama was struggling to finish early on, and there have still been a couple issues the last few weeks, but they're figuring out how to win in different ways. Shootouts, pitching, defense has gotten a lot better, and the record is not probably as great as Alabama fans would want, but you also have to keep in mind that this is one of those sports where when the committee seeds these teams, overall record is kind of the last thing they look at.
Yeah.
So Alabama's put themselves in a really good spot to host a regional. I still think, based on the metrics and the math, there's an outside chance to host a super with a good finish and a couple other teams falling down. And the team has seemed to kind of really pull together and play their best softball at the very end, which any coach, any fan would want. You would much prefer to peak in May and June as opposed to March and April.
And so, what would you say? I know you said there's some issues, but what do you think their biggest strength has been this year?
I think the offense being significantly better is a major development. Right now, entering today, I haven't seen the updated numbers since the game against Missouri, excuse me, that just finished. But as of right now, it would be the second best batting average for the team in program history. And the power numbers are up, the stolen bases. When you cause havoc for opposing defenses, you're going to be rewarded. And we actually saw that today in the Missouri game with the speed of Audrey Vandegrift leading directly to the first run in the fifth inning. And I think Alabama kind of utilizing that athleticism has been a really big strength, much more cohesiveness on offense, much more balance 1 through 9. And, the pitching has stepped up in some of the big moments when it's had to. And you don't have this year somebody like a Caleb Beaver or Montana Fouts who's going to go out and throw a complete game and strike out 15 people. That's not really the way this pitching staff is formulated, but they've got good stuff. And what they require is, when they allow balls put in play, the defense has to back them up. And the defense has been so much better in the last month. So I think Alabama is pretty well rounded. And the strengths have just been getting better as the season's gone on, especially in some of the biggest games that they played down the stretch.
Yeah, obviously this weekend was a big weekend in SEC softball. Lots of rivalries. The Red River rivalry, Red River. I am like having a stroke. Red River rivalry was happening just this last weekend, and they obviously swept Texas. Alabama as a softball team, how do you think is going to do? Like you said, it's better to peak now than earlier on in the season, but how do you feel like they're going to hold up against teams that are almost undefeated, like a Texas, OU, Texas A&M? You know, we're looking at really difficult, very competitive teams. How do you feel like they're going to hold up against them coming into playoff time?
I think they'll hold up well. It's just about finishing. I mean, you look at some of the top teams in the conference. Oklahoma, Alabama won that series. I know we'll probably talk about it in a little bit. That was incredible. And if you break down the games, Alabama could have swept. They didn't. Oklahoma did Oklahoma things and won game one, but Alabama could have swept that series. A&M, Alabama had the lead in the sixth inning of all three games, lost that series 2-1, but that was in College Station, so they were right there. LSU got run ruled game one, came back, had the bases loaded with one out, down a run in the sixth inning in game two, and then won game three. Florida, you could argue probably should have won that series, but kind of let it slip a little bit in the seventh inning after showing great fight in the top half. So, when we've seen Alabama face the upper echelon teams in the conference and in the country, again, UCLA, Alabama led 3-0 in the sixth inning there in Clearwater.
Mhm.
They've been in the game. It's just been about finishing. It's about making the play. It's about making the right pitch. It's about, if there's an error, not letting that lead to a walk and then a hit. It's, there's an error. All right, get a strikeout next.
Yeah.
And sometimes Alabama has had a difficult time stopping the snowball in some of those bigger games. But again, we have enough evidence to tell us that Alabama can play with just about anybody in the country. And if they play, without mistakes, mental or actual physical errors, then they can beat anybody in the country, I think, multiple times. So I think Alabama can hang. It's just once we get to postseason, it's all about matchups. And
Yeah.
what's the matchup look like? Is it a pitcher who's got the stuff that Alabama hitters are struggling with? That's stuff that we have to figure out once the bracket comes out in a few weeks.
Yeah, that Tennessee pitcher might get you guys. Be careful. She's getting everybody. Oh
Well,
my.
hey, Bama got her last year. That's all I'll say. But Pickens is very, very good, and she's upped her game this season. I think mentality wise, she's unbelievable. Some of the stuff that she's doing.
So, has there been anything about this year's team that surprised you compared to what you thought about them in preseason?
I think the biggest. I don't want to call it a surprise because I felt like it was always there, but we just hadn't seen it. But the development of Callie Hevlin, to now a consistent 2 or 3 hitter in the order. She's who you want up in the big moments. Early in her career, she was solid. She showed power, but she was hitting this down stuff. And if you brought it up, she was chasing. She was chasing the rise. She was struggling to make contact. This year, her eyes gotten better, so she's not chasing. She's able to hit change up, drop ball, screwball, rise ball, and she hasn't seen any dip in production even as her role has increased, because at the start of the year she was in the spot where she's been her entire career, kind of 6 through 9, somewhere in there. And when the production came, Coach Murphy moved her up slowly but surely as the season went on, and she's been just as good. So yeah, I think the development of Callie Hevlin, she deserves a lot of credit for sticking with it, for continuing to work hard. The coaching staff has done a great job with her. I think Callie has been a really, really pleasant surprise, and just good to kind of see some of that hard work pay off, because the talent was certainly there, and now it's showing up in the stats.
Obviously, we are in such a competitive conference. I'd love to know your input. Emma and I talk about this a lot on the football show versus softball. How do you feel the SEC in softball compares to some other divisions? And I know we mentioned earlier UCLA. Obviously, they do play each other throughout the season. But when it comes to that national championship title, obviously OU has had it for the last few years. How do you feel like Alabama and the SEC in general kind of sits in that nationwide pickup here? How do you feel like they are going to do this year?
It's the best conference in the sport. It's not close. It has been the deepest for a while, and then you add Texas and OU, who played for the title last year. It's still going to be good. And I would argue that this is the best sport for the SEC conference wide. Maybe gymnastics you can make the argument for as well, but man, I mean, you're looking at a position where you could have 6 or 7 supers hosts from the SEC, so 6 or 7 of the top 8 national seeds. There are going to be probably 10 regional hosts. Maybe Ole Miss or Mississippi State could sneak in there. Maybe there are a couple teams who might be in danger of dropping out, but I think 10 is a firm number. That's impressive, and it's because with the addition of OU in Texas, everybody has been preparing for the leveling up that was going to have to happen. And I think we've seen all the offenses in this league really explode. Everybody's got a star. Even Missouri, a lot of credit to Julia Crenshaw, who's their catcher and a senior, and she's having the best year of her life. She's hitting over 380 after hitting in the 220s, 240s last season. She's unbelievable. She's remarkably clutch. She's amazing on defense, and that's a Missouri squad that, unless they go on a run, is going to miss the NCAA tournament because they're under 500. But everybody's got a star. Everybody's got an impact player of some sort, and that's what has kind of helped continue to raise the level of this league, even as OU and Texas have come in and also still been pretty darn good since arriving.
Yeah, we talked so much about this earlier in the year, because obviously we are an SEC show. We love the SEC. I am a very biased believer that it is genuinely one of the best conference in most sports. Obviously, I did the gymnastics show this year. I can tell you 5 of the 8 contenders for the national championship were SEC teams. I am the believer that I think the SEC is genuinely the most dominant conference in the nation in all sports. And I know football did not do that great this year, whatever. However,
flipping the radar.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're into the next year, guys. Okay. I'm a Texas fan. It's going to be a good year. But Emma and I talked a lot. We had so many hateful comments in the beginning because we did a whole little talk about if Texas and OU deserved to be in the SEC and how it affected the football conference. A lot of haters came in. They didn't want Texas and OU in the SEC. I think Texas kind of proved their point to be there during football season. OU definitely struggled. However, like you just said, it's benefiting, correct, to have them in the SEC?
Well, it just provides more chances for the quality wins that we're all looking for. Everybody wants those top 10, top 25, top 50 RPI wins to strengthen the profile. OU and Texas, even in their down years, they will never be outside of the top 50 in the RPI and probably the top 10. So you provide more opportunity to get those quality wins that the committee wants. And I think OU and Texas have learned a little bit about what the SEC is like as well, because this conference is hard. It is sweeps are hard. It's hard to go on the road. It's hard to win. And, OU and Texas ran the Big 12 for so long, and a lot of credit to them for doing that. But, we said on Out of the Box when this move was made, we were like, OU and Texas are still going to be good. Yeah. But there's going to be a day, there's going to be a weekend when OU fans or Texas fans are going to look and say, how did that happen? How did we lose that series? How did we lose that game? And that's just because it's so difficult. It's such a gauntlet in this league, and it just makes everybody better. Michelle Smith from ESPN always says iron sharpens iron, and that is not that's truer in the SEC and softball than maybe anywhere else, certainly in the sport, but I think in a lot of different sports, because you get those 8 conference series, and there are some teams who are playing like 8 top 15 teams. That's going to make you better even if you lose. And having OU in Texas here has truly benefited the league as a whole, because you've had more chances for quality wins. You've had more chances to play games against good teams to make you better. And, you've increased the profile of the conference as a whole, because everybody watches the Sooners, and Texas has done such a good job under Mike White the last few years, continuing to build. It's nothing but a bright spot for the SEC.
I have one more follow-up to those 2 for you. Transfer portal, NIL world has changed college sports drastically. How do you feel like the transfer portal world has affected pros and cons in the softball world?
I think it's interesting because it's now something that you have to look at immediately. In the old days when the portal was first introduced, coaches were kind of like, okay, we'll get there. And now, when the portal opens, as soon as the regular season ends, you'll be getting ready for regionals, checking those names, seeing, all right, who from this team that missed the tournament kind of showed out that we need to bring on a visit. Super regionals, you're still looking. World Series, you've probably had somebody on a visit at some point, even before you go to Oklahoma City. It's a really good thing in softball, I think, the portal aspect in some ways, because there are more good players now than there have ever been before. And the number of starting spots hasn't changed. You still can only bat 9. You still can only have 1 pitcher in the circle during the game. And you're probably only going to throw 4 or 5, maybe 3. Well, consistently you'll throw 3. 4 or 5 will probably see time throughout the year. And there are just too many good players for that. And so it gives kids a chance to go and, if it's a bad fit, if it's a playing time issue, if you walk in and, there's somebody gets an extra year and you want to go, it gives you that chance. We've also kind of seen that be used a little negatively. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but we've seen players chase the bag. And one interesting person who really threaded the needle was Nigeri Kennedy, signing the $1.2 million NIL deal at Texas Tech. But a lot of credit to her because she took all the visits. She didn't have the no contact. She took all the calls. She visited Alabama. She visited a lot of different places. And she went to Texas Tech, and I don't know if they're going to host a regional. They might. Their profile's okay, but she did her due diligence, and I have seen across the sport at times some kids kind of game the system a little bit, try and see, all right, but can you give me more money and then I'll go to you, and that's not really the vibe I got from Nyjah. So again, kind of similar to the men's sports, football specifically, and basketball now definitely. It's not quite like, all right, who's going to give me the biggest bag, but it does pop up every now and then, and it just depends on the circumstance.
Yeah.
But again, it's fluid. I feel like every situation is different, and at the end of the day, like giving kids a chance to do what they want to do, it is always a good thing. And it's never going to be perfect, but I think in softball, we're doing a good job of kind of managing it right now. There haven't been any crazy things happening. It's complex. I'll just say that. I have a lot of feelings about it, but I don't know if I can properly articulate it as I'm still sweating.
Yeah, it's really changed the game, and honestly, props to her because there's really not like that's a lot of money, especially in the female sport world for the NIL. A lot of that money is allocated a little bit more towards the programs that make a lot of money, like football.
What's interesting about it is the question now is, what does that do for kind of the names? Because Nyjah is a name. Nyjah is probably the most talented player in the sport by quite a wide margin. Danielle Laurie on Out of the Box a couple weeks ago called her like the top 3 pitcher in the world.
Yeah.
We're talking about all the kids at Japan and she's that good. Are there going to be kids who maybe are, second best player on their team, or maybe was, Big Ten player of the year or something? I'm just throwing out random descriptions here. I'm not thinking of anybody, but are they going to go into that thinking, well, shoot, I'm going to get $1 million? I don't know. I think Nyjah is a very special case, and I don't know how much that money is going to really proliferate through college softball because of just how darn good Nyjah was and how rare that talent is. Not every pitcher that goes in the portal is going to get $1 million. So the question now becomes this year, if a big name goes in, one of the studs, whether it be a pitcher or a hitter, what does that number look like? And are the expectations for that number unrealistic, or are they reasonable? And do the teams raise their game thinking they have to? I don't know. That's kind of what intrigues me about this offseason, because somebody big will go in. I don't know who, I don't know where, but somebody big will go in. It happens every year.
No, it's always exciting to see the transfer portal, but at the same time, we're like, we kind of need more regulations with it all. But it's fun nonetheless. And then you get these brand new teams, and you're like, oh, what are we going to be this year? So it's always fun. But when you're looking at the SEC this year, who have you been the most impressed by so far? Because I love Alabama. They're my team. But I have been loving Arkansas softball this year. Molly and I both have. So what team has really caught your eye this year?
I was going to shout out Arkansas.
Yeah.
I've got a couple mentions here, but what I love about Arkansas is and we talked to Courtney Deifel on Softball America a few weeks ago about this. They turned a corner when OU swept them, and I'm not quite sure what it was that brought them all together. And it hasn't been perfect. They haven't won every game since then, but they've won every series, and that includes trips to Texas A&M, trips to Florida. They've been around and they've won consistently. The move of the freshman Ella McDowell protecting Bree Ellis in the lineup was so critical, because it makes teams have to pitch to Bree Ellis. Yeah. And pitching coaches don't pitch to Bree Ellis. It's a bad plan. She will hit a home run. She will be able to convert. She will win National Player of the Year or SEC Player of the Year, probably both, based on the stats. And having Ella McDowell, the freshman, wear that pressure has been really, really impressive and has made Arkansas that much more dangerous. The rest of the lineup has been really, really good too. Robin Herron has been good. Peyton Burnham, the freshman, is up to her game. Reese Burline has been really strong after a tough start to the year. They seem to be hitting their stride at the right time. My question for Arkansas is, can they keep it up?
Yeah.
Because there have been good Arkansas teams in the past, and they've lost in supers at home and they've lost in regionals at home. And there is something about the intangible of winning in the postseason. It is very difficult to do. And if you haven't done it before, it can be hard to get there. And Arkansas has been very, very close with very, very talented teams. I kind of still need to see if they can take it to the next level, because I think the pieces are there. I think they're talented enough to get to OKC. I just have to see them win. I have to see them actually do it.
I was very upset that they were not picked for the semifinals in gymnastics, just because they honestly had such a good year in gymnastics. They upset major teams like Florida, LSU. I mean, like
I believe they beat Alabama as well for
Sure
like
did.
the first time in
Yeah,
like
the
20 years.
was just not solid this year. It was rough.
It was a weird time for the Tide. It's like weird year, everyone's like records are important. Obviously we know that in gymnastics the record actually means nothing. But then Alabama made it to the championship. So
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I thought Arkansas had a great year. I made a prediction that I actually think Arkansas is going to have a great football year this season. I think they are probably the sneakiest school in the league, in the conference, especially. I think they are the underdogs. Same with a school like Vanderbilt. I mean, none of us thought that Vanderbilt was going to be the team that they were last year. And so, Arkansas is one of those teams, softball, gymnastics. I'm so looking forward to seeing how they handle the next few weeks in softball. I love Arkansas, and I'm a Texas fan, so that's like a sin to say, but I do love Arkansas.
they're so talented, and that's the puzzling part is they've been talented. Courtney Deifel has done such a great job. It was not that long ago when you had Arkansas on the schedule, it was an auto sweep. Courtney Deifel's first year, they won one game in the league. Yeah. And she's turned them around. She's got a great staff behind her. She's built it the right way. They're so talented. And so it's like, why has it not happened yet? And I wonder if this is the year. If this is the year, if the leadership of Brie Ellis and the effectiveness of Robin Herron, if that's the thing that can get the Hogs to OKC. We'll see. Again, depends on matchups. The draw is always the most important thing.
How did you feel covering the OU Bama matchup? Because that was just such an amazing moment for this Bama team this year.
It was unbelievable. This was a just iconic matchup. It's been a rivalry where every time Alabama and Oklahoma have played, there's been something significant at stake. And this is the first time in the regular season OU'd ever been to Rhodes. So it was so great to see the fans show out. The softball was excellent. I mean, 3 just incredible games, all on national television with Matt Schumacher and Amanda Scarborough. They did a great job. Amanda told us this week that's her favorite regular season series she's ever called. Alabama played exceptional. Oklahoma played well. Like Oklahoma, Sam Landry showed me that she's a star based on the way that she pitched in that weekend. OU, they're still extremely dangerous, but it was such a remarkable series because of all the fanfare, and it lived up to the hype. I mean, we get the schedule we usually get a mock-up in like September or October just so we can start booking flights and hotels, and then the schedule's released in November. Murph announced this series last April, and for it to live up to that was really, really awesome. That walk-off moment from Vandegrift is something I'll never forget, and it was so good to see 2 of the marquee programs play excellent, really fun, really exciting, great for TV softball for 3 straight days. It was awesome. And the crowd was off the charts. And, again, to get those sellouts, Rhodes has sold out plenty of times over the years. But, when you hype up a series for a year because you're playing the 4-time defending champions and because of what the rivalry means between Alabama and Oklahoma, that the fans are going to bring it. And that place, I mean, people were hanging from the rafters every day. It was awesome. It was a great weekend. I had a great time.
That was awesome. And I know you're known for your prep work, as we can see behind you. So With the NIL and the transfer portal, everything, how much film do you have to dive into year to year with all the emerging stars in the SEC, all the new players on all these teams? How much prep work goes into it?
Well, it varies because, so many pitchers, even when they're returning, can change their game a little bit. You'll see pitchers kind of add a pitch in the offseason or whatever, but also like I keep everything, not only the boards, but I also, when I scout, I keep everything in my notes app on my laptop so I can just search it if I need to, see some old notes. And I was laughing with Kayla Beaver, who pitched at Alabama last year. She transferred from Central Arkansas. And I told her, it was funny. I did an hour and a half of film work on you for regionals, and Alabama never played Central Arkansas. And so I remember saying in the press box, I was like, well, all right, I guess I didn't need to watch all that film on the Bears. And then Caleb Beaver showed up here. So, keeping all the notes, keeping all the stats and the scouts, that's very, very helpful for that. And again, you never know where a kid's going to end up. I mean, I keep all my stuff from the summer league, and I'll see a player who's pitching at Chattanooga and who's in the portal, and then oh my gosh, look, she's playing at UAB, and that's who we play this weekend. And all that stuff. Having everything is helpful. Just keeping track of all of it.
You
I
have
think
your external hard drives everywhere.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
and I think the transfer portal too has made it interesting because like we never really know how the team is going to mesh because we're constantly things are just constantly changing. Like people don't go to school for 4 years anymore and play for the same team. I mean, just this has changed. I mean, it's changed the whole game. And so I always think it's interesting, like you just said, getting that mock schedule, way before being able to see this lineup. It's like, well, we have 6 new players coming from other schools. I have no idea how they're going to mesh together.
and I think Missouri is a great example of this as well because they've got so many new starters. They brought in some kids from the portal. They're very young, and they scheduled a really tough non-con, probably too tough. Missouri probably overscheduled a little bit this year. They're a good team again that's going to miss the NCAA tournament unless they go on a great run in Athens at the SEC tournament. So I think that's the other thing that coaches have to figure out is okay, how many tea leaves are there to read, honestly, when I'm putting together the schedule? Because if you go to Clearwater with a team that's not connected, that doesn't have cohesion, that doesn't feel like a team yet, then you can leave with an abysmal record and abysmal results and games that can really demoralize you. Or you could hit. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the schedule roulette a little bit that all these coaches are playing with in the non-con, let alone the fact that your draw in the SEC could be anything,
Yeah.
anything at all.
It is always crazy year to year. You're like, what's out there for me? What do I have to face now? But so looking at Alabama, their softball journey so far this season, how would you describe it? What were you most proud of with this team watching them throughout the year?
Well, there are a lot of kids that I'm proud of. In this job doing the radio, you get to know them well, and you get to kind of see how they deal with the ups and the downs and watch them grow as people and as players. And I just think the pitching in the Oklahoma series that I was so proud of Jocelyn Brisky and Caitlin Riley and the way that they pitched against that Sooner lineup, which, when you prep for Oklahoma, you come across some gaudy things. Like they are so talented 1 through 9. And, you'll see this 7 hitters hitting 450 in the last 5 games. Like, well, what do you do about that? I mean, what a luxury for Patty Gasso. Uh, I will also say the kid that I'm maybe most proud of in my 9 years here is Lauren Johnson
Mhm.
because she is the perfect encapsulation of what grit and hard work can do for you. Our older sister was Jenna, who graduated. She's still working on campus, so I see her at games all the time. When we did our preseason pod, we discussed, okay, who's starting in the outfield. Lojo was probably running in 5th out of our discussions, and she did not start at the start of the year. But when she got her opportunities, pinch hit, RBI, gets a start, makes a great catch in the field, goes 2 for 3. And slowly but surely, she earned that spot in left field. And now it's to the point where today she hit in the 2 spot and drove in the go ahead run in the 5th inning. And it's just been so impressive to watch her work. It's really a great lesson for any player. If you're down on the depth chart at the start of the season, guess what? It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you've got time. You can
Yeah.
figure it out. And if you work hard, you could earn that position to be one of the stars and be one of the people that's impactful for a team. So Lauren Johnson, the plays that she's made, I mean, the diving catches, SportsCenter has robbed her ridiculously. She's not been in the top 10. I don't get it. The catch against Florida is one of the best I've seen in my time in a while. And I'm just so proud of her growth and the steadiness that she's brought to the lineup and to the outfield defensively. She's a great kid. She's done it the right way. And that's the kind of thing that you want to circle when you're covering a sport and you watch somebody do it the right way and do it a little blue collar. And it's been just so impressive.
Well, it's
I
cool. You see it before your eyes, the growth, and it's
Yes.
wonderful.
Well, and I love too, like the way you emphasized, like it's a marathon, not a sprint. We've got plenty of time, especially with softball. There are so many games. Me and Emma talk about this all the time. It's sometimes even hard to cover from the Sussy Stuff page because there are so many tournaments. They're also playing so many games in the tournament, sometimes 3 to 5 games on the weekends. They're also playing midweek. These girls have to be tired. Like I'm like, you've got, and they're students. I mean, it's a full time gig that they're running. Have you been able to connect with any of them individually? And how do you feel like they handle it, just even from a mental health perspective of getting through the weeks? Because that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is, and it's exam week. So,
God.
one of the players, we were talking about it on Tuesday, she was like, I have 4 essays due. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a game today. And, one of the managers, I was trying to convince him to go see a movie tonight because we're big cinema people. And he was like, I can't have a 14-page paper. I was like, bro, no, it's insane.
Yeah.
I really don't know how they do it, honestly. And we talked a little bit on the dirt, which is another pod that I do with Nicole Mendez, who played at Oklahoma. And I asked her, like, exam week, how do you, figure that out? And she said it's managing time. It's having an understanding coaching staff who can truly kind of make sure that you prioritize the right thing. And
Yeah.
when the days get hard, that's where that team chemistry piece is so important. So you've
Yeah.
got a sister that you can talk to. So you've got a teammate that you can, if you're having a day, vent to and then move on, or just somebody that you can spend time with. And that's where, this part of the season is where we see the teams that have that connectivity. They're the ones that go far. It's not enough just to be talented. The talented teams, they usually make a run, but they're not the ones that win the championships. The championships are won by the teams who have that extra connectivity. And that's why Alabama made the World Series last year, because they believed and they were with each other and they were connected.
Yeah.
And if you've got that, then you as an athlete, you as a teammate, you as a person on the support staff, frankly, you'll be covered when the hard stuff hits.
When I'm comparing the schedules, I almost feel like this one is a little bit harder to manage and attain versus any other sport. I would say softball and baseball are just so difficult with so many games. And I always am curious as to how. I don't know anybody that actually plays college softball. So I'm like, how are you? Are you guys okay?
Well, and the other part of it to that end is everything matters and everybody's good. Mississippi State is a really, really good team, and they're not going to host a regional this year unless they really end with a great run, because they lost a midweek game, or I think it was a Sunday game actually, to Northwestern State, who's 279 in the RPI. And that loss on a game where, Mississippi State's better. They're the better team. Northwestern State's like 70-40, but Northwestern State played better. Mississippi State didn't bring it that day. And so in this sport, because everybody's got good players, like we talked about, not just in the SEC, but around the country, if you don't bring it, you will lose, or you will put yourself in a position to lose. And then if they take the chance, well, sorry, that's a sub 100 RPI loss on the sheet. And that could be the thing that keeps you out of hosting. And, we're talking about games in February that the committee will be circling and highlighting once they get in the room in a few weeks. So again, like that adds to that. Like you have to bring it every day, or else you're going to be in trouble. And it makes it hard. It makes it more rewarding at the end when you do get to the mountaintop, when you get to that place, when you get to OKC, when you get somewhere that you haven't been, for a lot of teams. But it is very hard, and every day you've got to be on it in this sport with the way it is right now.
We always say it's a gauntlet, and we're proud of these girls, and it's so fun to watch them. Now, one final question. I know you're on the road all the time, and right now you're searching for the best chocolate cake in America. What is the best chocolate cake you've had on the road so far?
Oh man, I forgot I wrote that on the website.
I'm gonna use it.
I know. So I'll spin it off a little bit because I don't really. I'm trying to do less desserts. I'm trying to, I'm self care. But
Summer's on us, okay? Yeah.
Summer's here.
trust me, we felt it today at Rhodes. But on Out of the Box, we do a segment called Tom's Hungry. My radio partner Tom loves a good meal, and so whenever we go anywhere on the road, non-conference SEC, we make sure, you girls, y'all have fun at the team dinner. We're going to go to some restaurant that a head coach or a fan or a head coach's spouse has recommended, and then we do a big show at the end where we announce the podium and give gold, silver, bronze for our various travels. And I'll just say that this year has been by far the most competitive. By
Okay.
far. We've got probably 10 true restaurant contenders for the podium. And in the past, it's been, you know, well, I love that place, but this is the gold medalist. Tom and I have agreed on the gold medalist like 3 out of the 6 years that we've done the podcast.
Yeah.
So this year it's really up for grabs because we've had so many great meals.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, one is retired.
Okay.
Last Resort Grill in Athens won gold twice. And we agreed if you're on the podium twice, that means you go to the Tom's Hungry Hall of Fame and are not eligible to win again. So when we go to the SEC tournament in a few weeks, we will go eat at the Last Resort, and it will not be eligible for the podium. So there will be a new winner.
That's awesome. When do you release that?
That'll be at the end of the season pod.
Okay.
And we've we were in College Station for 3 days and went to like 10 places. I mean, we get around. Game
Yeah.
times are dependent, but we make sure that, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we hit them all.
Yeah, every time I go to Texas, I gain 5 to 10 pounds easily. It's like you have, like, things that you just have to eat when you're in town, it's like I've
Yeah.
gotta barbecue a couple times, I've gotta get, my Tex-Mex in, like, there's just and it's all so heavy, like, you
It's
leave
so
this
Mm.
good.
And it's really, it's so interesting because you get surprised. We've relied on the old reliable food near me on Google, and that's turned out some great restaurants. We've had Nick Torina, shout out to him, the husband of LSU head coach Beth Torina. He gave us a couple places that were outstanding in Baton Rouge. You
Oh,
know, we've had the coaches give us recs on the pod. Like we find it by hook or by crook, and this year has just been really competitive, very similar to the SEC. And I don't know who's going to win, just like the conference. It all connects.
It all connects. We're all here at the end of the day. So, Gray, where can people find you, your podcast, your social media? Tell us everything.
Oh boy, lots of options here. Okay. At Gray_Robertson, Gray on the Twitter/X for me. At Out of the Box _pod for the show. Tom and I, season 7. We just did our 100th in season episode last week. This week we'll start talking SEC awards, standings, bracketology. We've got the bracket packet. We'll do all the things. Don't know who our guest is. I'll figure that out. And then follow at Softball America on all Twitter and social media things. Do a Monday pod with Tara Henry, the Bracket Packet show on either Tuesday or Wednesday. I think this week will be Tuesday. Do the Dirt with Nicole Mendez. I journey and I talk softball a lot. And that's how it goes. I love the sport. It's great.
Yay. Thank you.
well, thank you so much for joining us, Gray. We appreciate it. We love having you on the show. We hope to have you back on the show, maybe after the finals. We're excited to have you. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you follow Gray on all social media platforms. Go ahead and follow Sussy Stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear your thoughts on our conversation with Gray today. We are bringing on one more special guest this week, but other than that, we will see you guys next week.